Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome to video number 89 in our Tillis Tell Stories for Saturday Night group. I borrowed this story from my colleague, Rabbi Tuvia Bolton. I called it a Bronx Basement Seder. In New York City, there is, or used to be, a program called Released Hour, in which any child who wants to can get released from public school once a week, 1 hour early, and go to participate in a class about his religion, with a priest or a rabbi, etc. Azriel Wasserman was a very gifted and devoted teacher in a variety of Jewish educational institutions, and he was one of the volunteers that gave such classes in the 1970s. He loved teaching, and his once-a-week pupils, who were, for the most part, from totally non-observant homes, loved him. By the way, Azriel was a dear friend of Rabbi Bolton, my source for this story, and a friend teacher of mine too, as well as a genuine role model for all the young men in our yeshiva. He tragically passed away 27 years ago on the 4th of Menachem Av, 5745, in 1985, from melanoma, which is skin cancer, at the young age of 37. May his memory be for a blessing. The session before Passover, Azriel met with his class and he made a practice Seder for them. Kool-Aid and crackers were in the place of wine and matzah, and the kids and he really enjoyed it. The next time he met with his class was the following week, in the intermediate days of the holiday after the Seder night. And he noticed that two of the pupils, two little girls, kept falling asleep in class. He asked them several times if they felt all right, and they answered each time that it was nothing. Finally, they hinted that they wanted to speak with him privately after the class. "Please don't tell anyone what we were telling you now," the older sister begged, after all the other children left. "We have to tell you, though. Do you promise you won't tell?" While she was speaking, her younger sister was watching her, but now both of them were looking up at him with wide eyes. He stared at them for a few seconds. Then he nodded and said, "I promise." The girls looked at each other one more time, and the older one began the story, while her little sister alternately looked at her and then at the teacher. She said, "Last week, you made for us a model Seder. Well, if you remember, my sister asked you why we are doing all this and eating all of these different things. And you said because that's what God wants. And you said it's to remind us how God was very, very good because he took us out of Egypt, right?" He nodded his head in agreement. "So that day we went home and told our mother what you said, and that we want to make a Seder the night of Passover, just like you showed us. And guess what? Mom sort of liked the idea. But our father didn't. Dad is not Jewish. So when we asked him, he got really mad and said no. When I asked him why, he got even madder and said that if we even talk about it again, he would give us a spanking. Then he went over to Mommy and started loudly yelling at her because he thought she told us to ask. He said other very angry things, and we got real scared. But afterwards, my sister and I talked alone, and we decided that if God said to do it, we were going to do it. So we figured out a plan. We took money from our animal banks, and on the way back from school, we went to the store. We bought 2 bottles of grape juice one day, and the next day we bought a box of matzahs, and the day after we took some lettuce from the refrigerator. We hid everything in the basement. Then, on the night of Passover, instead of going to sleep, we just pretended to be asleep. After Dad and Mom were really asleep, and it was already around 1 in the morning, we got out of bed, lit a flashlight, and snuck down the stairs into the basement. We were really scared because the stairs are creaky, and we were afraid that Dad would wake up. Also in the basement, it's really dark and scary. We even saw a rat down there once. But we made it downstairs, and we took out the matzah and the grape juice and everything. Then we lit 2 candles and turned off the flashlights. And then we made a secret Passover Seder. We did everything just like you said. We ate the matzah and drank the grape juice, everything. And then we snuck back up and went to sleep. And nobody knows. Rabbi Wasserman could barely contain his amazement. But then she continued, "Do you want to know what we did the next night?" "Yes, of course." "We did the same thing over again. But the second night we weren't so scared. And we even laughed once because my sister made funny faces. They looked at each other and grinned briefly. That is why we're so tired today," she continued. "But you won't tell anyone with you, will you? If Dad finds out, he'll break our bones." They looked at him pleadingly. He promised once again, and they said goodbye. After they left, he closed the door, sat down in the teacher's chair, and began to cry. "I don't know if I would have had the courage to do the same thing that they did," he confessed at a later date. "They really put me in my place."